All right, guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we're going to be talking about Piers Morgan absolutely going off on an IDF spokesperson, basically grilling him on a number of videos that have come out recently of Israeli troops shooting at what appears to be unarmed Palestinian civilians. And, of course, Piers on Twitter recently has been criticizing the Israeli government. Again, the IDF released a statement saying, oh, 2 suspects breached the line. That's why we had to breach the ceasefire temporarily. Turns out the suspects were 8 and 11 years old, which is totally insane. And this is what the kind of the narrative is from the Israeli government here. And Dave Smith also jumped in and was just going off on this guy, Jonathan Conricus. So Piers Morgan here is going to absolutely level him, basically saying, why are you not letting in any journalists to the Gaza Strip? Your entire justification was, oh, well, it's too dangerous. Well, there's been a ceasefire for 7 weeks, and you're still not letting international journalists into the Gaza Strip. The Israeli government, which you call the most moral government and army in the world, we see tons of videos of them breaching international law, apparently, and Piers Morgan just not putting up with any of it. And, hey, you got to give him credit. He's absolutely going off on him here. So we're going to show you the videos here, and then we'll talk about it after. And by the way, guys, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm, and it helps out the channel immensely. And if you want to become a member, hit the join button below. Patreon is below as well. Pretty crazy stuff. So here's the first clip, and we'll talk about it in just a second.
But 2 observations I would make. One is that the IDF actual spokesman, Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani, said shots had been directed toward the 2 men as they exited a building. Now, we can all see that is not what happened. So that's a lie. So you've got an IDF spokesperson on the record lying
how
about
is that a lie, Piers?
Because they were not shot as they exited a building. They've been shoved back under the building by the Israeli.
It's a pretty big omission.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
they came out and surrendered, and then were pushed back in and then executed. Yeah. They weren't shot as they exited the building. Yeah. And the second thing I would say is you've got our old friend Ben Gvir, the national security minister, who gave his full backing to the officers involved, saying terrorists must die. And Dave Smith, I'll bring you in here. Right here, you've got 2 of the biggest problems in this whole war. One is that we only know about this because it was caught on camera, and it begs the question, how many more incidents like this have been going on that we don't know about? Once again, I remind people, and Jonathan, I know you agree with me about this, it is outrageous that the international media remain banned from the ground in Gaza, where they could verify what's been going on there, even though we're 7 weeks into a ceasefire, albeit one which has continued to have a lot of violence within it, but it is a ceasefire, and you still won't let the journalists in. I think it's outrageous that the Israeli government continues that ban. So you can't verify what's going on. But again, this only came to our light because of a video that was taken. And then you have people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich who don't give a damn. They would happily see all the Palestinians out of there. That's what their stated mission is.
Yes.
And the question then becomes, how much of their stated mission, which everyone on the Israeli side always tries to downplay, they're not that important, they're not this, not that. Well, they're senior members of the government. And I think Netanyahu only got back into power by jumping into bed with these people. And I think he's been pushed ever more to the right in terms of his outlook on this. So you've got all this going on as the backdrop to this. What do you think about this video and what it represents?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, I think you hit a lot of it exactly right, Piers, which is that, right, look, it's not just that the incident happened, which is horrible enough, but then the way that IDF spokesman and the highest ministers in the government just lie through their freaking teeth about it. Like, they've been caught so many times, Piers, and you're absolutely right. There's a whole lot we don't know about, and I think when you won't let the media in, it reasonably leads to a presumption of guilt. The presumption is that you're trying to hide a lot of things, but just look at what we do know, Piers. We know that there's been multiple doctors in Gaza who have reported that toddlers have been used as target practice. We know that the IDF has admitted, multiple IDF soldiers and the Israeli government has admitted that they were firing live rounds into sites where people were desperately trying to get a little bit of food. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed in this way. We know about the Where's Daddy program. We know about all types of indiscriminate killing of innocent civilians. And every single time they lie through their teeth about it. And so I'm sorry, Jonathan can phrase this as that's not the IDF. People should be held responsible. There's an international, well, it seems to really often be exactly what the IDF does, and nobody ever seems to be held responsible.
I mean, it's very hard, Jonathan. It is very hard to maintain a position that the IDF and these security forces were operating, as you say, under their command, that the IDF is the most moral army in the world when you see them literally breaching the Geneva Convention on tape. You see them executing people who have just surrendered. That is a breach of the Geneva Convention, specifically set up to prevent these kind of crimes.
Okay, so again, even in that one clip, we see Piers Morgan call the spokesperson a liar after he basically said, oh, well, they were shot after they were walking out of a building. Well, what actually happened was they're outside, and it looks as though the soldiers are telling them to go back inside, and that's when they shot them. So it's just, this is all on tape. This is all on tape. And Piers Morgan's like, oh, that's just a lie, so that's completely untrue. And then you see Jonathan Conricus basically say, well, how is that a lie? And it's like, are you kidding me? It's literally on tape. It's just really totally insane. And again, they were put back in the building and they were shot. And what's interesting is this is pretty blatantly insane. And, it's under heavy investigation, as they say, but who knows how that's going to turn out. But again, they're put back in the building and shot. And you have government ministers, the national security minister like Ben-Gvir, who's a total extremist. He basically said, oh, it's great. Kill them all. They got to kill all terrorists. So openly supporting like war crimes. I mean, they don't even care about the rule of law at all. It seems people like Ben-Gvir. So again, this is a problem too. You have people like Ben-Gvir in the government and the administration who are openly saying they have no problem at all committing war crimes, like at all. So, and these are powerful people inside the government, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and you have people like Dave Rubin, again, who Piers Morgan just destroyed, basically said, oh, these are just random ministers, who cares what they say. The national security minister and basically the head of the finances, that guy they're irrelevant apparently. Ridiculous. And the one thing that Piers does say, which I sort of disagree with, he says, oh, they push Netanyahu to the right. I mean, I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I don't think Netanyahu needs any pushing to the right. He seems pretty right-wing himself, but okay, point understood by what Piers is trying to say. And of course, Piers Morgan, who's been very good on this one issue where he says journalists have not been allowed in at all inside the Gaza Strip. And again, the justification, which of course was ridiculous, is they said, oh, it's too dangerous, it's a war zone, we don't want anyone to get killed. Well, it's a ceasefire now, and they're still not letting them in. So what's up with that? Maybe it's because they don't want the journalists to actually get a first-hand account on the ground without being embedded with the Israeli Defense Forces. So again, it's totally ridiculous. And Piers is obviously correct about that. And it's really indefensible. And you have people like the spokesperson who says, he acts like he's so much better than guys like Dave Smith. But, you're saying the same things over and over again. And it's so obvious to the audience that you're just not telling the truth. I mean, and again, this guy says, oh, journalists should be let in because he has to concede that. If he doesn't concede that, then he has no credibility on anything else. And even this one issue, he basically says, oh, we don't know the full facts. It's on tape. It's literally on tape. And Piers basically says, yeah, this is a war crime, like no question about it. I mean, you of all people call them the Israeli Defense Force the most moral army in the world, yet there's a literal video on them on tape breaching the Geneva Convention. So how does that make any sense at all? And that's what Piers' point is making, and I think he's absolutely correct. And we're going to get into the second clip here where basically this guy, Jonathan Conricus, the IDF spokesperson, tries to smear a journalist for CNN, basically saying, oh, she's biased and partisan towards the Palestinians, which is, again, comical if you see a lot of CNN's coverage on the issue. So let's get into that clip and we'll talk about it in just a minute.
Foreign correspondence of her entire era. So to question
what
her
I
word...
think she remains is someone who has clearly shown her bias. Clearly shown her personal
no, she
bias
got
when it
duped.
comes
It happens.
to the Israeli conflict. Well, did she do a fancy video
Piers,
saying I got duped and I said something that was wrong and I misled my millions of followers on Instagram? I don't think she did. I think I would have seen that video if she would have, but she didn't, which shows you exactly a type of bias that Israel deals with.
All right,
Israel
let me bring in
deals
Dave.
with
Let me bring in
scrutiny,
Dave.
bias and
Here,
double standards like no other country, present people included.
All right, Dave.
Okay, let me just respond to a bunch of stuff that you've said there. And you called for a moment of honesty here, which I think I'm honest every time I'm on this show. But in the spirit of this moment of honesty, let me just be honest with you, okay? This tactic that you just used, that we all just witnessed, where first you're saying, we have let the media in. I don't know what you're talking about. 60 different crews have been let in. And then Piers shows you a CNN foreign correspondent saying, let me just finish my point here. Then he shows you a CNN foreign correspondent saying, hey, we're not allowed in. And then you immediately turn to a character attack on her. You immediately turn to, oh, she's a bad person. You see, she's sympathetic to Hamas or hates the Jews or something like that. People are on to that.
Okay, and again, I think the last point that Dave Smith is making is 100% accurate and kind of lays it out pretty well where, again, first off, the Jonathan Conricus, the IDF spokesperson, says, oh, well, Piers, you're incorrect. We're actually letting journalists inside of the Gaza Strip. Well, wait a second, but they're going in, but they're embedded with the IDF. They're not going in on their own, and it's still a problem. And Piers Morgan is even citing Clarissa Ward, the CNN correspondent, for saying, yeah, we're still not allowed in. And then instead of like conceding, oh, I was actually wrong, I was lying, I actually was not telling the truth, he just goes to a personal smear attack against Clarissa Ward. Not even attacking at all. Again, he's attacking a straw man. He's not even attacking the actual basis of the argument. And again, it goes to show you, this is, again, I think Dave Smith is correct. This is the debate tactics that we see from people like Jonathan Conricus, because again, let's be honest, a lot of what these guys are saying, it's really not defensible. It's really not defensible. And I think Piers overall did a really good job in this debate, and Dave Smith there at the end absolutely just destroyed basically his entire argument there. So really interesting stuff. Let me know what you guys think of this video, guys. And again, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm and it helps the channel immensely. And if you want to become a member, hit the join button below. Patreon's below as well. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Have a great night. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys later.